Hello and welcome to Board Game Bonkers. I'm Jay Sears, and this is a review of Bios Origins, which is the second edition. Now, I'm not going to go through a traditional showing you an overview because it's just far too much to go through. Instead, I'm going to put links in the description down below for a couple of how to play videos. I'm just briefly going to talk about roughly how the game plays, and then I'm going to talk about my pros and cons. The reason why I'm doing a little bit different is a very complex game indeed. So if you like heavy games, then you might want to check this out. Although, when we come to my negatives, you'll find out why I'm not going to recommend this. That's why I'm going to do this a little bit different. Before we get started, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so. And please consider liking the video. It helps us discover it. And let us know in the comments down below. What do you think about this game? Do you agree with what I said? Well, let's get down to the review. So let's talk about roughly what you're doing in this game. So in Bios Origins, you're 8s and you're developing elders to go into the marketplace to develop ideas and then bring those ideas, which are cards, on to your placard. So essentially, you will have a brain. So this brain is where you'll have your pawns, and you'll be starting some at the bottom. It shows you can have 2 in the middle and 1 at the top. When you get to free will, you'll be able to take them off and place them into the marketplace. That allows you to develop ideas. Now, cards that are in the marketplace vary considerably, and you start in 3 different eras. So you've got Epoch 1, 2, 3, and you've also got Epoch 4, and that's when the end game triggers. So these are your market cards, and they're going to give you different actions, and there's 2 double-sided. As you can see, you can flick it round, and you've got an Eureka on the cards as well. That Eureka gives you, it's like a bonus. It gives you a bonus that you can have, and all players that have got a pawn on there will be able to get that bonus. However, you won't get that card if you don't trigger that particular action. So each player also has a placard, which is this, and you've got different actions. In the game, there are around 46 actions. That was a lot, and there is a help guide here. It goes through all of those actions, and you've got a bit of flow chart. So there's 3 different phases. There are certainly 3 areas you go through at the start of every turn. So you first will challenge your god, and then you will carry out your actions that I showed you on the back here. However, you do not start with all of them. You only start with a handful, and then you will then go to the footprint, and you will restore the marketplace. So essentially, that's the phases. You've got 3 phases you will go through, and on your placard, you'll be looking at your placard to carry out actions and adding cards to carry out more actions. You have a ruling, which you'll be placing on, and you'll only be able to carry out actions where that ruling is set. So if you've got cards elsewhere, you won't be able to carry those actions out, only in where your ruling is. You take actions from the bottom, only 1 from a row, and you'll be working your way up. When you go past, you can't take any actions below. So that's essentially how that works. You'll be scoring as well. There are only 3 different ways to score. Areas, so you have culture, where you can score. You have politics and you have your industries. You'll be scoring in those tracks. There are 2 main tracks in each of those areas, and you'll see those tracks at the top as well. Now, there's various different mechanisms. You can bid for cards. For example, at the start of your turn, you'll be challenging the god. You'll be taking a challenge card. You'll be flipping that round, and you'll be bidding, essentially. You'll be bidding with your pawns you have out on your mysticism, which is on the board, as well as what is in the marketplace. So you'll be doing that through the duration of the game. You're trying to accumulate a number of points. You can place immigrants out. Immigrants are these people here, which you place out on the board, and you have buildings, which are these you'll be placing out on the board. However, buildings and immigrants do not give you points. What gives you points are those tracks. That is essentially what's going to give you points. And scoring's done a little bit different because in the top tracks, for example, in mysticism, in urbanization, and in diversity, you will score depending on how many players are behind you on that track. So in a 2-player game, there's 1 player behind you, you'll gain 1 victory point chip. The other tracks, you will gain points depending on the number you're at. So if you're at 8 on one and 7 on the other in that particular area, then you will gain those joint victory points. You'll then look at the across those 3 industries. The disciplines, those 3 disciplines, and then you'll be determining who has the most single most victory points in those disciplines, and that determines the winner. You also have a philosophy area, which is, it's not quite a track, but it's almost, you'll be moving this cube around in this the philosophy area, and then you'll be influencing the end game scoring, because that will trigger whether end game scoring happens in a particular area or not. And essentially, that's what you're doing in the game, trying to get these tracks, get the most points, get some cards that give you more actions. You have different types of cards. You have the challenger cards that give you actions. And you also have the idea cards which come from the marketplace. Those are the two main cards that you have. You have other mechanisms that happen and you have chaos that happens. Well, it means that these migrants that are out on the board will come back on, and they will become unrested, and they will go on to spaces where there's a rainbow, and you'll be placing that on there to show, and that means that blocks you taking any actions on that card. So that does that, and then there'll be a revolution where you can move your crown piece to a different ruling. I'm not going to explain all that, how that works. The how to play videos explain that in detail, but essentially that's what you're doing. There's a lot more rules in this game than that, but that just gives you a very brief overview. Let me just explain what I like. Let's go through that. Let's go through what I don't like, and let's explain, give you my final thoughts and explain why I think this game is broken. Now, I had high hopes about this game, so I want to talk about some of the positives, and there are a few really cool mechanisms. I like the tracks. They're simple. You can see who's ahead in the tracks. You can work out what tracks you need to go up. You go up tracks by acquiring cards that let you go up tracks. So certain cards will have symbols, and I'll try and find one. So you've got one here, and that allows you to go up tracks. So for example, this gives you this symbol. That means if you're less than 2 on that particular track, you can go up that track by 1. So that's what you're trying to do, is get those cards that allow you to go up tracks to get you victory points. Is the main way of getting victory points. So I like that you can see where people are, and you can work out strategically which card you want to try and get to go up certain tracks. I like that. I like the philosophy area. It's not quite a track, it's almost like an influence area, where you're moving this purple cube into the influence area, and to influence what events might happen, because it will trigger certain events that might hurt other players, and those events are usually accumulated and worked out by where you are in certain tracks. So if this track is higher than that track, this will trigger this event and hurt other players, which tends to destroy half the buildings or take away half the immigrants. So that's how that works. And also at the end of the game, it says no scoring. So if you're in a particular area, in that philosophy influence area, then that will prevent scoring happening in a particular discipline, whether it's industry, politics, or culture. So I really like how that works, and how the end game scoring can change significantly depending on where that cube is on the philosophy area. So I really like how that works. What else do I like? I like the double use of the cards. So on the cards, you will notice there's a challenge card. There are actions at the top, and it's coloured that way, and there are actions at the top, and there's the other side of the card. So I really like that you can flip the card round, and you can determine there's two different places. You can always put the card in your tabloid on your ruling. So if you look at your ruling, you'll be able to see they're coloured differently, and you'll be looking at your card to see where you want to be placing that card. So for example, I could place that card here, and that will allow me to carry more actions out. So I really like that dual use of the card. I really like as well in the marketplace. So in the marketplace, you essentially, it's almost like bidding. You're an influence, so you're placing your elders out. So you place your pawns out, that is elders, they go in the marketplace, and you'll be acquiring those cards. So you have 3 different levels. At the bottom level, it takes 3 pawns, middle level takes 2 pawns, top level takes 1 pawn, and you'll be trying to bid. Now, just because you have a pawn there doesn't mean you win the card. It depends on who carries the particular action out to take that card. So as long as it meets requirements for the minimum number of pawns, and they can have more, but they must meet the minimum required number. So you take that card, the pawns come off, they go back to their owners, and every player that has a pawn on that particular card that's taken gets the bonus. I really like that. Everyone, so even if you don't get to take the card, providing you meet the requirements, you'll be able to get the bonus, which is called the Eureka. You then look at the requirements. I really like that. You need a certain requirement to take the card. So even though you've developed the idea, you need that requirement. So I really like how the cards operate and work. So there's one other thing I really enjoy about this game, that's how the bidding works. So in the bidding for the challenge cards, which are here, each player at the start of the turn will flip it over, and before you carry any actions out of events, you'll be able to bid. So each player will look at how many elders, i.e. pawns, they've got out on to the marketplace and decide how many they want to bid. If there is an asterisk up here, in which case there isn't, but if there was, it's like a star, you'll be able to look at your mysticism and look how many pawns you've got there, your elders, and you'll be able to use that for your bids as well. And some also indicate with a plus where you can look at the philosophy influence area, and wherever that cube is in what particular influence area, if your ruling is at that particular area, for example, if it was here and influence token, it's not a token, the cube was in that particular influence area for politics, then that will earn me one more additional vote. So I really like how that voting works to get those challenge cards. And challenge cards are important because challenge cards are more likely to stay in your tabloid, whereas other cards, the idea cards that you get from the marketplace, they can actually be removed from your tabloid through chaos and revolution. I don't want to go into detail about that. It's probably the most complicated part of the game. So I really like how that works. And that is where my likes stop. Let's go into what I don't like about the game. So let's start with the rulebook. Now, the rulebook is a problem. And the reason why it's a problem is because there is tons and tons of text that refers to this page, that page, another page. So for example, if I show you, and I'll show you the best page with a minimum amount. So for example, it'll say go to this page in brackets, it might say go to B8B. So then you're flicking through the book going like, where's B8B? So you read that, then it will refer you to, now you go to E3D, so then you go to E3D. That'll then tell you to go to another page. So you're back and forth between the rule book. There are a few grammatical issues. There are a couple of rules that contradict other rules. So it'll say you have a choice of doing this or this. Then later on in the rule book, it'll say you must do this. So which one is it? So there are some issues with the rule book. The order is a little bit confusing. So you're going through it going, right, this is here, then it'll refer to another rule 5 pages on or a rule 2 pages back. So you're flicking back and forth in the rule book. It is not a well-written rule book. It is problematic. It took me 8 hours to go through the rule book. I had to look at how to play videos because I had to check, am I playing this right? Have I got the rules correct? It's confusing in a few places. It doesn't explain some of the rules in a nice, easy, simplistic way. It explains some of the rules in a complicated way. Some of the actions are very simple. You just do this and place this meeple here. You do this and place your pawn here. Very simple. However, the rules make it more complicated than it should be. So it seems like the rulebook definitely needs an overhaul. It definitely needs someone to check those rules, go through it, change a few things, change the ordering of it, just making it much clearer. And certainly it needs more diagrams and explanations. There's nowhere near enough diagrams. It's just walls of text, a couple of diagrams, a handful of examples. It's confusing in many places. So let's go into the second thing I don't like. There are a few rules that are quite convoluted. It just seems there are necessary steps. So for example, it talks about revolution. You have different types of revolutions. So therefore, you're going through this whole process. You do chaos, then you're doing another thing, which is taking these migrants off your cards. You're then doing another thing to then move this card over here, then do this. It's just procedure after procedure after procedure. But then if another particular revolution happens that then does this, it's confusing. You're probably confused listening to this. It is confusing to work it out, and it takes a few plays to get a head around how that all works. This revolution works with this because it's forced. It doesn't work if it's not forced. Then if this is a natural occurrence, a god of war, this happens, but if this happens, chaos happens. It's confusing. It is not streamlined enough. It is way too confusing for what it needs to be. So that leads on to my next point. You're placing buildings out and you're placing immigrants out, okay? So you have these immigrants and you have these buildings, you go out on the board. What benefit does that have? You get no points. No points for them. So why am I doing it? The only real benefit is, if you've got buildings and migrants out, it may stop you getting rid of these from your marketplaces, you see? Because if you've got any immigrants that become dissidents, it's called dissidents, onto your cards to fill those rainbow spaces up. Then what will happen if a revolution happens, you'll be removing them off, and which means for everyone you remove off, you will then be taking one of these off. But that goes into the next point, where there is a major flaw in why this game is broken. I do not have to place buildings or immigrants out, because if I place them out, sure, I can lose my elders, but I can get them back. I just need to concentrate on the scoring tracks. That's all I need to do. It's where I get my points. I don't get any points for doing any buildings. I don't get any points for putting any immigrants out. I only get points for the tracks. So why do I need to put buildings out? No reason. No reason at all. It's not giving me any points. It is a negative because they get destroyed all the time. So what's the point? I just need to get points. So all I need to concentrate on is a couple of actions. Okay? Those actions are this. It lets me place my pawns out onto the marketplace if they're in the free will area of my brain. So I do that. I then need to concentrate on this action, which lets me take a card from the marketplace. I want the Eureka areas because the Eurekas are going to let me go up tracks. For example, this is a track. This lets me go up the military track, what's called metallurgy track, by 1, providing I'm below 2. So if I'm at 1, I can move up to level 2. This one, for example, which is the energy track. So energy is good. So that allows me to go up the track. If I'm below 4, I can go up to the next level. So they get more powerful as the epochs come out, those are the eras. There are 4 different epochs. New cards will be refreshed at the end of each epoch area. So that is flawed because I just need to go up the tracks. That's it. I don't need to do anything else because I'm not getting points for anything else. I just got the tracks. As long as I've got the most and the majority of a combined track in a particular area, so for example industries, if I've got the most in maritime and information, I just need to make sure I maximise that. As long as I maximise that and I've got more than what anyone else has got in any other track, combined tracks, because there's 2 tracks, you combine them in each of the discipline areas, I will win the game. So why do I need to put buildings out? Why do I need to put immigrants? I don't. It is just so flawed and broken, this game, that it is pointless having the rest of the map because I don't need to do anything. It doesn't hurt me. It benefits me by not doing anything because I don't have to fiddle about by taking buildings off, taking this off because a chaos happened. Then I have to do all the revolutions. We're taking all the immigrants off my cards, etc. All I need to do is concentrate on the Rika. I don't even need to take the card. The only card action that would benefit me, and I'll explain it, is the artisan, because that lets me take 1 pawn from my brain, free will, place it in the marketplace. That's the only card I need by a particular action. All the other cards I can just dismiss as long as I get the Eureka, which I showed you, that gives me that bonus to go up the tracks. And I'll win the game. I don't need to do anything else. Boring. Damn right boring. This game is so flawed and broken, I don't know what I should be rating it. Would my mind change if you had points for buildings and immigrants placed out on the board? Sure. Yes, it would. But as a game stands, it is broken. It's flawed. I just don't understand how this got through development. I don't even understand how the rulebook got through development because it is a nightmare to read. Is it the worst rulebook? No, but it's probably the second worst rulebook I have read. It is horrendous. Trying to find things, it just takes forever. It's a mess. The game is flawed. It's broken. I just don't understand. Why release a game that is so broken, I don't need to play half the rules. In fact, in the base game, it tells you, really, you don't have to urbanize by taking your buildings out and building them. You just concentrate. In fact, you don't even take the cards when you get them from the marketplace. You don't place them in your tablet. You just take the Eureka. What's the point? What's the point in just going up tracks? I may as well buy a game just to go up tracks. Absolutely trash in the end. Disappointed. It looks gorgeous. I was so looking forward to this. A game that looks great in the table. I love the way the cards work and it's got some good ideas, but it is just broken. Boring, damn right boring. And I'm sorry, if you BIOS fans love this game, it is broken. No point in me playing it. Absolute trash. I have to be fair. The mechanisms, some of the thoughts that go into this game are fascinating. I have to be fair. I'm going to be giving this a 4 out of 10, just because some of the ideas are cool. The philosophy track's cool. I like going up the tracks, great, I can plan that out. I like the dual use of the cards, which way am I rotating the cards, which ruling have I got, because I need to place it in that ruling, because you can't put the cards in a ruling where you're not at, so you have to work that out as you're buying the cards. Everything else is just disappointment. If you had points for buildings and immigrants, sure, I'd probably give this a 6 out of 10, but there's just so many little rules, so many little things to keep track of, that is impossible. 46 actions. Yes, the small bite and the fairly straightforward. Oh my goodness, there are so many icons. This game is broken. I'm sorry to say, this game is absolute rubbish. If it is broken, why release a game? It does not work. And all I'm doing is going up a couple of tracks. Just buy a game that has tracks. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Thanks so much for watching. You've been watching Board Game Bonkers. My name's Jay Sears. Until next time.